Very few flies become famous in under 10 years. There's one fly that became famous in under 5 years, and that is Hans van Klinken's Klinkhamer, or as it was originally called, the Klinkhamer. This fly was invented by Hans in central Norway, and I believe the time was about 1985 or 84. He came over to the UK. He came over, in fact, to Wales first and fished it on the Welsh Dee, and absolutely mesmerised both anglers and grayling over there. And then he came up with a friend of mine and fished the River Ure at Massam. And I think the year then was about, I think it was at 1987. And this pal of mine that was with Hans couldn't wait to tell me. In fact, they came over to my fly tying class that very evening, and Hans sat down and tied one of these flies in my fly tying class. He'd absolutely plastered the grayling at Massam, and he'd done it on this great big fly called the Klinkhamer, which, quite frankly, gobsmacked everybody. We'd all been brought up on a diet of tiny flies for autumn grayling. So the fame of this fly, or should I say its notoriety, spread very rapidly among my own particular circle of friends, and pretty quickly we were catching fish like hell with it. And so its fame has just spread, and the Americans are now into Klinkhamers. Of course, it's been used all over Europe and Scandinavia. There's a bit of history to this. Hans devised it when he was on a camping holiday in central Norway, fishing the river Glomma. And so the story goes, he was gutting 2 or 3 big grayling one night to cook over the campfire, and he decided to do an autopsy, a stomach sampling, and he found they were all full of huge, great caddis pupa right on the point of emerging. And the thing that he noticed was the fact that they all had this nice curved abdomen. And so he'd taken some fly tying gear with him, and he set about tying a pattern. And he came up with this pattern. And it was named by one of his great Dutch friends, Hans de Groot. Hans gave it its name. And they wanted to, because it was sort of devised in central Norway, they wanted to combine the first few parts of Hans's name with a Norwegian sounding name, so it became the Klinkhamer. That's not hammer with a double M, it's a single M with a little circle over the top. And it was called the Klinkhamer Special. Now originally he called it his LT series because it was tied with light tan polyarn. Most people these days tie it too small. They call a Klinkhamer tied half that size a Klinkhamer. In actual fact, a genuine Klinkhamer is a real big meaty beast, and he ties them even bigger for when he's fishing the big brawling Scandinavian rivers. And there's a bigger one. And he ties them even bigger for that when he goes on over to the Yukon and British Columbia and Alaska. He ties them really massive and catches salmon on them. So it's a great fish puller, is this. It's the fish puller par excellence. So for trout fishing, trout and grayling fishing, that's about right for our waters. I've got an earlier one here, which I've had for several years now. He gave me this a lot of years ago. This is slightly smaller, but still a big fly compared with the flies that we're used to using for trout and grayling. And so this is the fly I'm going to tie. It's a wonderful floater. Most people tie their own versions of it. Some people tie it right, some people tie it wrong. I've seen at least 4 or 5 versions of tying it. When I did it in my book, I made a slight error, and there's a little secret about this, and Hans has only recently told me about this, and he told me this with a laugh over the phone. So I shall be able to show you now the right version.